Welcome back. So, this next panel will transform your potential energy into kinetic energy. And I'm hoping they answer the question I have, which is, do I have to register as a trader, even though I'm making almost no money in my apps? So please welcome our panel.
So this panel will really be focusing on what it means to be going on your own path and then suddenly realizing that it's not just the business that you need to run, but suddenly you also need to pay attention to so many other things, including regulation. So I am here with Donnie, who I think you've seen many times during these panels before, and I'm also here with Mitchell. So as we know, being an entrepreneur is not an easy job. And could I hear a bit more from your perspectives about more the regulatory perspective? What have you found? Has it been important for you to keep track of what is going in the world of government also, and why for you specifically? Maybe we could start with Mitchell.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things, especially when we got into career tools and helping people find a new job or something like that, we started also processing a lot of private information, sensitive data that obviously needed proper protection and stuff like that. Especially whenever GDPR came into play, a lot changed for us. So it was very interesting to see what that had entailed for every recruiter, but all businesses. We have a portal, we have an app, we have so many things that process data. How do you engage with that, and what does GDPR change? And it changed a lot. It also had side effects that were a little bit unforeseen and made it a little bit impractical for both the applicant and me, and the user of our apps. So one anecdotal one is for me personally, and it happens all the time, is whenever you have to send a GDPR removal request, you have to kind of like identify yourself in the email. And then you ask, like, can you delete my data of your servers? And in that email, because you're identifying yourself, there's a lot of data as well. I did that a couple of times. And then one organization actually had their Zendesk environment breached. And they held on to the email, and unfortunately more data was leaked because of the email than was on their servers in the first place. And this is something that I recognize in a lot of these newer, legislative frameworks that are being built. Is that I think the initiative, the intention is probably good, but there are some side effects that, make it a little bit, it adds attack factors to whatever it's trying to legislate.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that we see a lot with our members at ACT, the App Association. One of the biggest reasons and benefits I think that members get is being able to be informed and updated about new regulations. It's, of course, as an entrepreneur or a small business with just a couple of guys working together, it's very hard to keep track of everything that's going on. I mean, I work in policy, and right now in tech regulation, it's very hard for me to keep track of everything that is going on, and it's my full-time job. I think there's recently been a trend in the European Union of rolling out a bunch of new tech regulations, and it's been really hard to keep up with it. So I think the GDPR was already mentioned. Then I've heard that there was discussions earlier on the Accessibility Act, which is also something that people will have to be complying with soon. There's been the Digital Markets Act, which is also creating a new environment, and there's the Digital Services Act, and the AI Act, of course, which is still quite uncertain before its implementation. So do you have any specific thoughts about these developments? Maybe we could go to Mitchell about like the impacts that these new rollouts of regulations are creating.
Yeah, for sure. It is very interesting because you always have these memes, for example, like the US innovates, the EU regulates. I don't think that's entirely true. We innovate a lot. We create a lot of great things that is really cool. Maybe our government does regulate a lot. It could also help with new opportunities. But I think, or at least the people that I hear a lot, developers around me, they're also saying it does add a lot of extra burden on well, transparency reports, or having to put your address on as a trader, sorry, for DSA, which could be kind of tricky for some developers. Others may, well, say like, oh, you can find me anyway. But like, right, it has certain things that could impact people differently. Now, and I feel like DMA is also one of those, where it does make I think the initiative has a let's say a good intent, but it also has like unforeseen consequences, as far as I can see, that could impact security, could impact privacy, could impact like well, malicious people with malicious intent. Adversarial countries could use these opportunities as well to, well, try and do loads of things that already have happened, but on a really small scale. I think it's going to get bigger with legislation like this. So yeah, it kind of depends, but for me, I think that there are some things that we definitely have to keep talking about. We can't just say it won't have impact on security. I have seen some politicians say that, but I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we're talking more in depth also about specific regulations, I think we might take the opportunity to touch a bit more on also on the DSA. So the DSA is the Digital Services Act, which is in force now on European level. And one of the effects that it's had is that platforms, including app stores, need to keep a registry of traders' information for contact. But something that we heard from our members immediately reached out to us as soon as this became a requirement on the App Store, saying that the requirements were not entirely clear. Who is a trader? What is a trader? And when does this apply? We acted as soon as our members raised this, and we sent out a letter towards the Commission, an open letter. Since then, there has been a bit more clarifications on the App Store. There's a bit more in-depth discussion about how there has to be revenue involved, direct revenue from the activities, and that is what a trader is. But this is still a bit vague about what exactly does mean. Is there a threshold? What if the revenue is a very small amount? So we still think that the clarifications are not enough, and it's something we need to continue pushing on. I think this is a really great example of one regulation itself can cause so much uncertainty. But one of the big issues recently has been, as we discussed, the rolling out of so many regulations where there's overlap. It's not always clear how they overlap, how they interact. We were just discussing the other night that for a a data breach, there's like 4 different regulations, 4 different methods of reporting this breach. How does that help to be reporting in 4 different places? So right now in Europe, there's a big conversation of innovation versus regulation, which Mitchell already mentioned. Yes, of course, these regulations are important and want to achieve important goals, but let's make them make sense. Let's make them not add more burdens. So, Mitchell, I think you have some thoughts about this topic specifically also.
Well, yeah, for sure. I think that too much regulation, too much legislation could have an opposite effect. Instead of helping smaller businesses, it might just, again, put an extra burden on anyone who's trying to innovate. But it could also, again, have very big implications on cybersecurity. And it kind of depends on which way you're looking at it. I know everyone has their own opinion, but for me, as far as I can tell and see on the internet, there are many experts that are saying that adversarial countries will try and take advantage of it. Now, as a smaller entrepreneur, you might not be involved in that, but like if something happens to the platform, it might lower overall trust in the platform. So if you're building an app for it, someone that's trying to experiment, which is something that happened since the smartphone, right? Everyone is trying to experiment with new experiences, new apps, which was kind of unheard of in the 2000 era where we all had PCs and people were actually kind of scared and maybe have even had 2 or 3 antivirus applications on their computer. Now we're just randomly installing something new and exciting. And that's good for us as a small entrepreneur. It's good to have new user bases everywhere where you can find them. But it has to do with the trust in the platform, and then on top of that, the perceived trust in the people using the platform to reach other people.
Both Mitchell and Donnie have been on calls with regulators before, so yeah.
True. And I got a lot of advice also on things that I was very concerned about that might impact apps that I was trying to create. And then the ACT Association also told me it's probably more for the bigger companies that are working on bigger AI systems.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty helpful for me as well. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Donnie and Mitchell. That was really insightful. And we can continue the conversation later outside if any of you have questions or comments. Sure.
We have time if you have questions that you'd like to ask them.
Hello. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion. What I hear a lot that developers, entrepreneurs are unhappy with regulators because they make our life harder. There's very little engagement in the political and policy process. So, for example, if you look in the Netherlands, but also in the European Parliament, at the backgrounds of the people sitting there as representatives, as elected officials, you basically have nobody with an IT background. So I don't think it's very surprising that the laws that they're making maybe are a little removed from reality. So maybe we should actually kind of get our own act together. And I didn't know about the App Association. I assume this is what you're trying to do. And actually engage with this process. And as you're saying, people are interested to know what the problems are. And so it's maybe a little bit on us. So I was wondering what you think about that.
I think it's spot on, and I think that's the exact reason why we're here, why App Association exists, why I'm happy to join this panel.
You're absolutely correct in what you're saying, and that's exactly what, as also Donnie said, that is the purpose of what we do.